right, everybody, we're coming to you live, y'all. This time we in downtown H-Town, baby. That's right. Welcome to Houston, Texas, y'all. As we getting ready to celebrate 196 years. Hear me? 4 more years, we have 200 years here in Houston before when the Allen brothers, that's Augustus Allen and his older brother John Allen, discovered Houston, y'all. You know, we did all the history on the black community. Now it's time to do history on the city that produced the black communities. That is H-Town, baby. Houston, Texas. You know, we getting ready to go into 196 years of Houston, Texas, y'all. And it's so good because this is where it all started at, right here on this Buffalo Bayou. And I am so pleased to be here to do this good documentation of the history of H-Town as we know it today. But back in the day, it wasn't a town, it was a territory. And before that, it was land that Augustus Allen and his older brother John discovered Houston. And it wasn't called Houston at the time. It was still getting the independence from Mexico. 1826, y'all. And when Augustus Allen and John Allen, after my man Sam Houston defeated Santa Anna and the Mexican army in 1825. Then that's when Augustus and John Allen came and bought this land here. They wanted to buy the land a little further up down the Buffalo Bayou, which is called Harrisburg, Texas. We know it today as Harrisburg. Houston annexed Harrisburg in 1926, 100 years later. But right now we're talking about the history of H-Town, y'all, because I have watched this city grow since I was a little boy. I never left Houston. Back in the 50s, we was the 14th largest city. Now here it is, almost, you might as well say 65 years later, we're number 3 as the largest city in the United States of America. And when they discovered this historical landmark where I'm at right now, the Buffalo Bayou, you have to remember this is 1825. This is 40 years before Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. So you have to remember this is a slavery state. It took this state, after they got the independence from Mexico, it took them 15 years before the United States accepted them in the Union. And the reason why? Because this was a slave state. And slave was still going on when Augustus and John Allen laid the land down to buy this piece of land that I'm sitting on today. And after Sam Houston, who, let me inform you, who was married to John Allen's daughter, and after he defeated Santa Anna and got the independence from Mexico, John Allen and Augustus Allen decided to honor Sam Houston, which Sam Houston was John Allen's son-in-law. This is some history that you didn't know. That's why I say this is the real history, y'all. And I'm so glad to be part of this history. Because when John Allen and his brother Augustus, when they came to Texas, they really wanted to buy Harrisburg, Texas. But John Richardson Harris did not want to sell it, the land. And in fact, John Richardson Harris, who, by the way, they named Harris County after, in case you want to know this, he did not want to sell that land. So Augustus and John went down the bayou a little further and tapped into some new territory and some new land on the Buffalo Bayou. And at the same time, they wanted to honor their John Allen, who is the oldest, wanted to honor his son-in-law, which was Sam Houston, by naming this city after him, since he did such a good job of getting the independence from Mexico. So that's how you got the name Houston, y'all. Now, when this was discovered here on this bayou, they wanted to, and 1 year later, they formed a association, which was a corporation. The Allen brother and them formed a corporation to try to make this into a city. At first it was a territory, and then it was a little town, and they wanted to make it into a city. So they incorporated 4 wards. First ward is where we at on the side. This side over here where I'm at is downtown. This side on the left is going to First Ward. And then if you're going back towards this way, that street over there is Congress. Congress turned into Dowling. See, these people are killing our history with this bull cone talking about the slave. This is a slave state name. Damn that, all our history is on Dowling. Plus, if you want to rename this, because a slave, every owner here in Houston was once a slave family, came from a slave owner. This is just a bunch of bullcone of how they're trying to eliminate our black history, and some of our black leaders are going along with it. Yeah, it's a slave state. All of these goddamn streets are named after slaves, owners. But I'm not going to get into that. It's politics, but it is what it is. So, Congress turned into Darling. And you go out, which I'm on the corner of Franklin and Louisiana. Going back towards Franklin would take you out towards Second Ward. So now you got First, Second, and then you got Third. Because Congress going to take you out to Canal, and Canal will take you into Second Ward. Congress would take you out, Fannin would take you out to Canal. Congress would take you out to Dowling. And then, if you want to go on the backside, Dallas would take you out to Fourth Ward. So now you got First, Second, Third, and Fourth. And then after the Emancipation Proclamation, 1865, the Allen brothers incorporated new area, and they called it Fifth Ward and Sixth Ward. And everybody know what Fifth Ward is on Lyons Avenue in Jensen. Everybody don't know what Sixth Ward is. Sixth Ward is over there off of Studemont towards Center Street, like you're going towards Independent Heights, like you're going towards the Heights. Okay, so now you got all the 6 wards. And we have seen this city grow. It wasn't no sports in this city. It was no professional football. Wasn't no such thing as no basketball. The only thing that existed was the first professional sports was baseball. And Houston did not have a professional baseball team, a major league professional baseball team, until 1962. And that's from Judge Roy Hoffine. And he was a judge here in Harris County. And he is the one who orchestrated the county to build the dome. And when the dome was built, it was called Harris County Dome Stadium. It was not called Astrodome Stadium. Mr. Judge Roy Hoffine claimed it as Astrodome. And the reason why, because when he brought his professional baseball team in 1962, it was called a Coke 45, and they couldn't use the name because the name was patented by the beer company. So they had to change the name. And at the same time, in 1961, when the United States built the Space Center out here, everything now that used to be oil, because Houston was known to be an oil city. Because even that's how we grew so big and so fast. Because in 1901, when they had the great oil splendor out there in Port Arthur, a lot of oil men came down to Texas to recruit their oil. And when they decided to do that, they wanted to move to Houston, which was a new town. and was becoming to be a city, then that's why a lot of rich oil men moved to Houston, and that's what built up Houston right there. When they had the great spindle top out there in Port Arthur in 1901, and by this time they already had the Emancipation Proclamation, so it was still segregated, but they still had the Jim Crow law. The Jim Crow law was separating the blacks from the whites, and anybody that wasn't black or white, they was considered as yellow. Mexicans wasn't no brown, they was yellow. Asian was yellow. It was only 2-3 races, white, black, and yellow. So when they bought in the Colt 45, before the Colt 45, that's why you see me with this Houston Astros shirt, because they celebrating 60 years since George Roy Hoffine bought professional baseball in Houston. See, because in 1960, Bud Adams had the Houston Oilers, but the Houston Oilers was not a major league football team. It wasn't the NFL. They had to discover and go into another different league as the American Football League. But eventually they consolidated the American Football League after 4 Super Bowls. And this is when the Houston Oilers joined the NFL. And now you're talking about somewhere around 1967. But anyway, we're talking about the discovery of our city, Houston, Texas, y'all. And I am so proud to be a native of Houston. I'm so proud that God blessed me with all the historic part of Houston. And I watched this city grow like I watch my kids grow. I watch the crime grow. I watch most of the segregation go. Because now we have a black police chief, Troy Fenner, from Houston, raised up in Houston. And then we got a black mayor from Houston, raised up in Acres Home. And it's so good to be here to talk about this historical city. Because like I say, you're looking back in 1950, even in the early 60s, Houston was ranked number 13. And now Houston is rated number 3. That's right, they got more population than Chicago. I thought I would never see that happen. They're right behind New York and LA. But as the city grew, crime grew, attitudes grew. And see, back during the time when we were part of Houston in the 50s, we was a village where everybody just about knew everybody from these different black communities. And we only had 6 wards. Everything else, Houston annexed it. And we can go back and go back to the early 1940s when they, really in 1926 when they annexed Harrisburg. And then in the 1940s, they not only annexed Independent Heights, which we call it today, y'all call it Studewood, but it's Independent Heights. And then they also annexed Trinity Garden and Cashmere Garden in the early 40s, and also City Gas in the early 40s. And then in 1956, they annexed Sunnyside. And then in 1967, they annexed Acres Home. Now you got our black community. Now you see where the history at. Now you see where it all migrated at, right here in H-Town, Houston, Texas, y'all. These are things that television stations don't show y'all. These are things that even below, believe it or not, a lot of people who work at these television stations, they look at these videos so they can get educated. And it ain't their fault. I'm just so blessed, the honor to give them this information. Whether or not they give me the credit, I don't care. It's documented. I'm so honored to be part of this great city that we call Houston, Texas, and to watch it grow. From the baseball to here it is, World Series. Man, we won a World Series. We have hosted 2 World Series here. We have been involved here in Houston with 4 World Series here. And we are the only Major League Baseball team have won a National League pennant and an American League pennant. In fact, we done won 3 or 4 American League pennants. So it's an honor here, y'all, to be part of this city and to be part of the people in this city, to watch so many people have came in this city, have moved their family here, raised their family up here, and a lot of these segregated ways are gone out the door. And you can move where you want to move now, thanks to the fact of the 1964 signing of the Civil Rights Bill of LBJ. And by the way, when they discovered, when they wanted to find a place for the Space Center, it was LBJ, who was the vice president, told Kennedy that the only way his dream gonna be, because Kennedy, when he went in office, he wanted to have a dream of building a space center, but he didn't know where. So Johnson told him about a place called Houston. And everybody, when they recognized Texas, they immediately figured it was all about Dallas. Dallas and Fort Worth, the multiplex. Only thing somebody knew about Texas was, in Houston, was that it's a rich city, because they got a lot of millionaire, all millions, who lived in this city, who got investment in this city. And I'm so honored to mention some of the people that have really helped this city grow, man. What can I say about, Sam Houston, the son-in-law of John Allen? And what can I say about the Allen family? They still got buildings and property all around here in downtown Houston. Where you think the name of Allen Parkway come from? Where you think Allen Center over there come from? And the Allen family is so gracious, and the new generation is even more. Every generation the Allen family gives in, man. They gives in and they want this city to grow, because this is where their family grew. This city grew like their family did. And as you can see, most of these buildings you see downtown is the Allen family. I'm so thankful, you guys, to be part of this historical part of Houston, Texas. Welcome to Houston, Texas. This is Boo Lee, y'all.